All right, let's hear it for Eric Cole, everybody. August 31st, 1996. UK football suffers a rather humiliating defeat to the Louisville Cardinals on opening night by a score of 38-14. There's absolutely no earthly reason why I should remember that. I was born and raised in Norwell, Massachusetts, and could care less about Kentucky football. When I was growing up, sports was simple. The Patriots and the Red Sox disappointed you always. The Celtics always won, and the Bruins ended up getting in fights all the time, and they were fun to watch. But in 1990, I moved to Louisville, and I married my college sweetheart. And Ellen was born and raised in Louisville, and at the time she was a rabid UK fan. And on that particular night in August, she was also 7 months pregnant with our daughter. And she was also supposed to be on bed rest because she had developed during her pregnancy preeclampsia, which is high blood pressure, and our doctor informed us that this was potentially preventing the baby from getting all the nutrition that it needed. And so there's bed rest, and then there's UK football, and the game had to be watched. And I was not going to argue because it's really quite amusing to watch a pregnant lunatic screaming at Bill Curry through the TV. And it worked because he got fired apparently. So really, Ellen was on her best behavior, and right after the game, we went right to sleep. And at about 3 o'clock the next morning, she gets up to go to the bathroom. Not an unusual occurrence. A couple minutes later, she comes back and she says, I'm going to call the doctor, which honestly was also not an unusual occurrence because it was her first pregnancy, and Ellen's sister is an OBGYN. And Ellen's doctor was in the same practice as Ellen's sister, and so needless to say, we had 24-hour access to hot and cold running doctor's opinions. And we made good use of it. And but what was unusual is she comes back about 10 minutes later from the phone call, and she says in a rather serious and insistent voice, "You need to take me to the hospital now." So I'm not going to argue with that. We get in the car. I get dressed first. We get in the car, and we start the short drive to Baptist Hospital. And Ellen has her feet up on the dashboard, and she's obviously in pain, and she thinks that she's in labor. And again, I'm not going to argue with her, but as I'm approaching the one traffic light between us and Baptist, I start to slow down because it's red, and this unearthly, ungodly voice emanates from deep inside my wife, and she says, "Are you fucking kidding me?" So I proceed with all haste through the red light, and I pull up to the emergency room, and I look up, and I'm surprised to see that there's a small army of people waiting for us at the emergency room at 4 o'clock on a Sunday morning, and this is when I really start to get scared. And the next couple hours are really a blur. Within an hour, all 6 doctors from the practice are in the room with us, and they're barking out orders, and Ellen wants drugs because she's in pain, but they don't want to give her drugs because they're trying to stop the labor. And in the midst of all this insanity, this little, very confident voice says, "People, we are going to have this baby now." And everyone snaps into shape, and like the X's and O's on a play chart, everyone knows exactly what to do, and the bright lights come on, and the doctor's masks go on, and I think to myself, shouldn't I be scrubbing? But no, there's no time for that. And before we knew it, all too soon and all too early, our daughter, Virginia, was born. And they take her to weigh her, and I hear 3 pounds, 5 ounces, and I catch a glimpse of her as they're hurrying her out the door, and she's all arms and legs, just skinny and long, and but she's screaming, as they take her out the door, and I think this is a good sign. I'm clearly qualified to make these kind of decisions. This is a good sign. She's screaming. And after she leaves and goes to the NICU, Ellen and I are sort of left there in the silence to look at each other and say, so now what? And the best I could come up with at that point was, I think I left the car running at the curb. I'll be right back. And I came right back. But shortly thereafter, someone comes in and informs us that Virginia needs to leave Baptist and go to University Hospital. And I know that this is not a good sign. And the nurse who had been with us the whole morning, just sweet, wonderful person, she tries to fill that awkward silence, and she says, so, did you see the game? It was great, wasn't it? So I think that you'll forgive me if I say to you tonight that 16 years later, I still just couldn't give a crap who wins that football game every year. And I hope you will forgive me when I tell you that I still get a little sad 16 years later when I think about how god-awful expensive it's going to be to send that beautiful, healthy kid to Harvard. Thank you.